Neat fight coming up at flyweight. We have Tracy Cortez taking on Justine Kish. For Tracy Cortez fought her entire pro career up until her last two at 125 pounds, and that was to get into the UFC. She beat Maria Agapova. Before that, she beat Erin Blanchfield with LFA. You can argue with me. I still think Blanchfield won the fight, but regardless, it's a W on your record. And listen, Blanchfield had to take the long road to get here. For Cortez, the win over Agapova, then the two fights at bantamweight, interesting because she beat Vanessa Melo in, I'd say, impressive fashion, but everybody beat Vanessa Melo in impressive fashion. And then if you look at her last time out, she fought Stephanie Egger, and that's where it gets weird. Because for Stephanie Egger, black belt in judo, ADCC trial winner, she also had a win over King Reina, and she had a fight against a really tough out in Mara Romero Barella and finished her. So for Stephanie Egger, she had that quality about her, and she was coming in on relatively short notice. And Tracy Cortez took her down and absolutely dominated her, so that impressed me a lot. But I guess for Cortez, apparently the future is at 25, so I'll be interested to see again. Weight wasn't really an issue before. Is it an issue in this one? She's had a lot of time off between the Egger fight and now. And for Justine Kish, well, she fought at 115 before, and she fights at 125 now. And for her, it's just a tale of odd fights, because you know her for striking, but then in some fights she grapples, and sometimes her submissions are there, but sometimes they're absolutely gone out the window. She's such a fighter that I just can't get a read on. Honest to goodness, I know I did, and you can go back and find the tape. I picked Kish to beat Mazzo, and right up before she gets submitted, it was a halfway competitive fight. It was.
She got dropped by like 4 head kicks.
Yeah, you got to watch out for the head kicks with Espino Mazzo because they're going to be spam. But Kish did a decent job before she gets head kicks, she gets finished. But for Kish, it's like she looks great. The Pudzilova fight takes her down, absolutely dominates her on the ground. And then she fights Felice Herrig, and Herrig absolutely dominates her on the ground. For 2/3 of that entire fight, Felice Herrig was on top, controlling it.
So this fight for me, I think you can break it down and really oversimplify this fight to a certain degree. You have Tracy Cortez, who in her last fight fought Stephanie Eggers, a very big 135er and a very credentialed grappler, or at least that's what her background is. Tracy Cortez out-muscled the much bigger fighter in that fight. Now you have Justine Kish, who was moving up from 115, and honestly, her frame does match 115 a lot better than it does 125, because at 125, you're going to be facing fighters like Tracy Cortez, who physically are much bigger than you, are much better at wrestling, and I know we talk about the grappling of Justine Kish, but she's a good example of a fighter who, when in top position, she can be effective. She has decent ground and pound, she has decent top pressure, she can get bucked off if you do have a really physically strong fighter on the bottom, but anybody can. When she's on her back, though, she does just kind of fish for submissions and not work to get back up to her feet. And one thing that really bothers me with Kish, she likes to work with a closed guard on her back, but she doesn't go for a lot of submissions with it. And a closed guard, when you're fighting someone like Tracy Cortez, Cortez can be more than happy to just sit in your guard, hit you enough so that the ref doesn't stand the fight up, and really just keep the fight in that position. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, hey, isn't that exactly how the Stephanie Eggers fight went? Yeah, it's exactly how it went, and that was against a much bigger fighter. Now, Eggers didn't really have the striking background that Kish does, but Kish doesn't have big power by any means, so I don't really think Justine Kish is as simple as, oh, if she can keep this fight on the feet, she might be able to hurt Cortez. We've seen Cortez hurt in her UFC career. We've seen her hurt on multiple occasions, really, because her striking isn't that great, and she is sort of stiff on the feet, if you will. She throws with a lot of power when she does let her hands go, but I'll compare her striking at least somewhat to Macy Barber. I do think Barber has better fluidity in her strikes, but the fact that Cortez does really like to go out there and just not overhand her way into the clinch, but it's just a lot of volume really hard, and then I'm going to go for the takedown. Someone like Kish can be overwhelmed by that initial volume, be forced to bring her hands up, and that's going to open up the takedown consistently throughout this fight. So I know I've kind of set this fight up as very heavily Tracy Cortez, but personally, I just don't know what tools Justine Kish has to really force this into a Justine Kish fight, which is very movement heavy, a lot of jabs, a lot of kicks, a lot of those things really do just play into the hand of Tracy Cortez. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one.
For Justine Kish, very Muay Thai heavy, that is her background, of course, and she does throw a very high volume. For Tracy Cortez, it's takedown after takedown after takedown, and if you look at it so far from Dana White's Contender Series into the UFC, she got 4 in Contender Series, she got 2 in her debut against Mello, she got 3 against Egger, and I don't know where you got the S from if you're going for a higher Scrabble score than I was, but that's absolutely fine. But I look at it in this fight, if the weight cut's not a huge issue, and I feel like over at Fight Ready, they're getting her ready for a fight like this with the Santino DeFrancos of the world, I threw it down as far as the people that she's been training with or the people that have been in the pictures recently at the gym. You can kind of connect the dots a little bit. And I wrote it down, Victoria Anthony and Michaela Beck. And I had to look into their backgrounds. Very, very, very high-level wrestlers to the Olympic caliber. So if Tracy Cortez at least is like in proximity of a wrestler like that, I do like that. I think Santino DeFranco and the crew have really schooled her well for a good run in the UFC. To me, this feels like a setup fight. It honestly does, and an opportunity where, hey, we're not going to give you a big name or a big rank fighter. You're not going to fight, yikes, Miranda Maverick or Macy Barber who are fighting themselves. That makes sense. But you get Justine Kish in this one. And for Kish, it's tricky. I mean, she's 2-3 in her last 5. She's training out of Black House. She actually does have a really good training partner that can somewhat emulate what you're going to get out of Cortez, and somebody who we've already brought up in this series, Vanessa Demopoulos, is a main training partner of Kish. So you do like that coming into this one. So maybe if she can kind of keep Cortez away and she can mix her striking in, there's an opportunity. But I look at this one, Matt, and on Saturday on Question Mark Kicks, you're going to have to tune back in to check it out. I'm more than likely going to have Tracy Cortez as one half of it. She opened a minus 235 favorite. She's a minus 263 right now. And for Justine Kish, she opened a plus 200. It did drop. I mean, you could have had her at a plus 170. I mean, I guess. Then. And now she's a plus 210. And if you have a look at the Topology votes, they're knocking my socks off. Didn't see this before. 993 of them, 95% Cortez, 89% decision. That's the fun part for us because we don't check Topology until after we hit record. But yeah, I really do like Cortez in this one. I feel like it's a tailor-made matchup. And again, that's going to be one half of the Question Mark Kicks parlay, unless the line gets stupid as the week goes on. But I do like Cortez.
No, I couldn't agree more. For Kish, she basically has to keep Cortez off her for a full 15 minutes. And yeah, she might be able to do that for 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe even 3. But just as that pressure continues, I do see Kish eventually folding, probably getting taken down multiple times throughout this fight. So yeah, I agree. I like Tracy Cortez.
Both of us going with Fight Ready in Arizona's Tracy Cortez to get the win. Really looking forward to this card. Our co-main event, Drakkar Klose taking on Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens. And in our main event, we have Bobby Knuckles taking on the man himself, Kelvin Gastelum. So keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it.